Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives. Hello, FitBody Lifers. Welcome to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle. I am joined by the most important person in my life, Miss Jami D, and another person who's also very important in our lives, Kristen Bennett, Doctor of Physical Therapy. And Kristen, welcome. Thank you for being here today. Our episode today is that not all treatment modalities are created equal, which I love that little title. Jami didn't like it because of the not, but we're going to go with it anyway.
We're going to turn a spin to
That's
it.
We're going to spin it into a positive.
I said choosing the right modality for you.
That's right. So we could do either title of this episode.
Perfect.
I like to let people in on what goes on behind the camera. So that's what went on behind the camera. So,
But I lost.
I don't know. We still got it in. So was that really a loss?
I still got it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So Kristen, always, babe. You're always a winner in my book. So,
thank you, baby.
So Kristen, I know we introduced you in the first episode, but just so people are familiar with you and what you do.
Are you going to do a check-in word first?
Oh, that's right. Thank you for correcting me. So, what's your check-in word for this episode?
Eager.
Eager.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I'm
I don't
eager
think we've
for this
ever
one.
had an eager. I like that.
I like being a first on
That's a
this.
good one. Okay, there you go. Well, you are the first one.
Eager.
So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
My name's Kristen. As I said, I'm a doctor of physical therapy here in Arizona. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of the FitBody Fusion girls and other competitors within the Valley, bodybuilder guys, you name it, sports athletes. It's been a really fun profession that I've gotten to work with and a wonderful experience getting to add the FitBody Fusion team.
Yeah, we like to keep you busy and
I
keep you
love
guessing.
it.
Like, how are we going to fix this one?
So I have this thing. What are we going to do with it? I love it. It's my favorite.
It's a puzzle. We bring you all the puzzles.
I love it.
You're like
It's
the
fun.
Sherlock Holmes of physical therapy.
Totally.
Because it's about solving that issue.
Yeah.
What's the problem that we're solving? So let's go ahead. You want to
I was just going to say, because I know there's so many modalities out there, which is really awesome. And you and I talked about this before the episode. And one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about this is because I don't think people are aware of all the different options and finding somebody who has tools. You know, I always say this because not the same thing works for everybody in every situation. So I really was excited to have you kind of talk about some of the different things, both that people could do on their own as well as, you know, when they come in to see you or to come see somebody to get body work done. So we could start breaking it down by in the office first.
Yeah, and I think one of the
But before we go into that,
No, I
I'm
love
sorry.
it. I love it.
I know.
This is how we
I know.
do it.
This
I love
is-
this.
I
this is how
start
we
the
do.
conversation and then he says,
I know.
"Wait a minute, let's back up a little bit."
Well, I do like to kind of prep the battlefield a little bit and just talk about what we're talking about.
She's on to you now.
Can you talk just a little bit about the difference between rehabilitation, recovery, and preparation or optimization?
Yeah. So I think people think in their mind, well, I only get body work or I only come see a physical therapist if I'm hurt, right? Like that's probably for most people like, well, I'm not hurt, so I don't need to go do that. But in order to perform at the next level, you talk to any professional athlete, top tier Olympian athletes, they're getting body work very consistently. That's a staple in their, they eat, they train, they get body work, right? That's a staple, non-negotiable thing. So there's recovery from an injury. There's recovery just from training in and of itself. There's optimization in that how can we get the body to do more, be better to perform at that level that we need it to be. I don't know if I'm covering that well.
You did. You covered it really well. And I think, rehab from an injury or surgery, recovery from an injury. But I'm not talking about like from an injury that requires that level of care. I'm talking about recovery from, hey, I had a really difficult training session this week or something like that. I'm doing something to recover. And then optimization is that next level of, okay, And there's probably a little bit of optimization in the recovery piece, and there's, but it's really getting that body to move most efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
And freely, so that you're getting the most out of your workouts, but you're also staving off injury, excuse
Yeah.
me. And that's the investment of time that I don't think a lot of people connect, is that this is not just about recovery or optimization. It's really injury prevention. It's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's doing that. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to make sure as we talk about these modalities, they're applicable in all three of those phases: rehab, recovery, and optimization. But you're going to pick the right tool. And one of the things, Kristen, that I'll compliment you on is that I think, like, there's people, we've worked with some people who use the newbie fit, and for them, the newbie fit is the end all tell all. Everything revolves around the newbie fit. It can be used for everything. It can be used to start your car. It can be used to fix a leaky pipe in your house, and it can be used for
We've heard it all.
it's a great machine.
It's a tool.
It's a
tool.
great tool. But one of the things that I love about you is you're agnostic about this stuff. You're like, I want to pick the tool that's the most effective for the problem that I'm solving. I'm not just going to pick a tool because I like that tool or because
they spend a lot of money on it, which I think is sometimes what it is. People want to recoup their investment. So,
And don't get me wrong, I love the new fit too. Like, that's a great tool, right? But you just said another tool. So I think a lot of times we come into it thinking, okay, well, like, what have I put so much time and effort into learning, right? That's one aspect of it.
Sure.
But so you really do hone in, which you do want someone specialized in something, right? Really skilled, passionate about the service they provide. But getting people who are passionate about just healing, like, that's my main thing, right? Healing. And then these are the tools that help me get there, as opposed to, like, I'm passionate just about this to get there, if that makes sense.
It does.
So when I take that approach with people, kind of going back to the optimization recovery thing, if someone comes in and they're like, hey, I don't know if I'm just going to mention this, I'm not sure if this is applicable, but I was training and when I was doing leg press, I was kind of getting this weird little knee pain. I don't really feel anything now, right? And that's sometimes people just shoop out of their mind. I felt it during training, I don't feel it now. Well, what that's probably telling us is something's going on in the knee. And right now it's probably more muscular in nature. Like, something's kind of form is off. So let's address that. Let's talk about ways of using different modalities to get into that muscle before it becomes a structural bone, wore something
It's
away.
benign until it's not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So sometimes you think, like, oh, those little things, those little nagging thing, it went away, so I don't really feel it. It's not a problem. Well, something probably was off in that session. Your foot placement was a little off. Something was wonky. Something was too tight, right? So those are just little cues, like check-ins. I say, like, little light bulbs that pop up of that was off in my training. So what's going on? Do I need to do a little more prime and prep work? Do I need to foam roll a little bit more through there? Do I need to go talk to someone? Kind of a situation. Or you want to keep track of that as you train. Sometimes I tell clients, like, jot down some notes while you train.
I was about to say, this is where, like, putting
huge.
some notes down is really important, because you might not remember.
Correct. And even that, like, 1 week it caused it, the next week didn't. Okay, what did I do different? Did I not do my prime and prep work that week? Did I do it that, because you kind of get the story of your own life in that situation.
Well, and people are poor historians. And,
Yes.
and so if you do not have a mechanism of recording down something, we believe in using training logs, and whether you're doing them digitally or old school with the book, whatever works for you. It depends on what works best for you. But it's one of the reasons why I think, what the skills of the most successful people, or whatever they say, go to bed with a pad of paper or something to record your thoughts by the nightstand. So if you go to bed with a thought, you can record it down. It's not lingering with you over the night. You're not stressing about it. Same is true with the training log, is that, hey, look, I felt this on this thing. And okay, maybe the first time you felt it, it's a one-off. But if you notice it, okay, I felt it on successive training sessions, then it's clearly something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been cool with some of the girls too, because they all have the, like, training apps and things like that. They'll come through and they'll jot on their own notes. Okay, I felt this on this exercise, and this is where I didn't really connect to this. So they've gotten more in tune with their own bodies, which is just helping their own training. They're building mind-muscle connection through this process, right? And then we can kind of come up with, okay, well, if you're not with me and you're feeling this, you can grab your foam roller. You can go do this while you're doing this exercise, or you're going to throw the foam roller in as a prop to mobilize and activate. Like, it's giving them feedback and tools to use while they're training when symptoms arise. Because
Right.
that's
Well, because
finding
first and foremost, the
yeah,
information is
correct.
your best tool.
Yes.
Without the information, it's really difficult to kind of start to nail it down.
Yeah.
So both in terms of the person individually using it for, like you said, their training and their own recovery, as well as if they are seeing someone, like when somebody comes in to see you, if they've got those notes, then it's so much easier for you then to
Yeah.
figure out like how can you optimize this person or deal with some kind of pain, whatever's
Yes.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite things, just kind of like we were talking about earlier, finding a modality. I love when people send me a message. They're like, hey, I want to schedule a massage. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give you a forewarning. Like, this is not going to be your comfortable massage. I'm a physical therapist, and I use a lot of different techniques to get to the goal. So I kind of like preset them up of, you're not just going to come in and
is
take
not
a
a
nap
spa
on my table,
relaxation.
right? Like, we're going to work together. We're going to break through some things. We're going to solve. So I always tell them, like, I do a lot of dry needling. I do cupping, scraping, ART, some stretching. We'll go through exercises. We check how that works. And then if that doesn't work, we find the next tool that's going to help us achieve the goal that we're trying to achieve. And some people are like, that's exactly what I want, right? But then in their mind, they're like, I want a massage. So sometimes communicating when you are trying to find someone is, instead of just saying like, hey, I want a massage, I have these body issues. What are services that you provide that could help us get to the goals that we're asking those questions instead of just like, okay, I want body work. Okay, let's have that follow-up question of, what are things that you do to help me get to our goal? So then, for example, like myself, I said, I do dry needling, and that's not allowed in every state. So not every state could say that they can do
Let's
that.
talk about what is dry needling.
Yeah, so dry needling, it's kind of, people more commonly have heard of acupuncture. We use a needle, and it's called dry needling because I'm not inserting a substance with it. It's just a solid base needle, and I will put the needle into a muscle for a couple different situations. I either want to wake a muscle up because it's dormant, it's not activating well. It's too inhibited by restrictions and tension, like too many trigger points. So I can put it right in a trigger point and get a muscle to release. And I can also do it for some pain stimulation. And also it promotes blood flow to areas. So if I really want to promote healing into an area, I can put some needles in through there, get blood flowing into it on a deeper level than just, say you have a glute muscle. Well, the glute's pretty darn deep. And if I only work the top surface through scraping and cupping or deep tissue, I'm never getting all the way through to that like glute med, glute min on the deeper fibers, right? So I can put a needle directly into the glute med, glute min and get that to release, or I can get it to activate. And the kind of the best example I've tell people with that is, if I want to do a leg extension, my brain tells my leg to kick. That is the process that happens. When I put a needle into the quad, it'll get a twitch, it fires. You didn't tell your brain for that muscle to fire. The muscle told the brain something's going on. So we kind of flip the current, the circuit board. Instead of the brain telling the muscle what to do, the muscle's telling the brain, hey, something's going on and we need to change what is going on there. Whether it being inhibited and it's not firing, for some reason, nerve connections there's not getting proper blood flow, it's not getting stimulus, it's too tight, nerves aren't firing, or it's too bound down and we need to get that muscle to relax. Whatever it may be, we're switching that circuit board. So we're telling the brain like, hey, something's going on, we're giving it new feedback, listen to the new feedback we're giving it. So sometimes I'll put like needles in the glutes or something, right? We're trying to get the upper outer glute. That's our train. We train it so hard. We work it. And sometimes it gets kind of restricted and tight in there because we train it so much. So getting it to release. So we can put some needles in there, and sometimes you'll get first needle in it, boom, twitches. And you're like, that was weird. Like the girls, that's usually their first intake is, that was a really weird feeling, because your system, you didn't do anything to cause that. Your system is responding to the stimulus. And then you can do it a couple more times, and sometimes it's just like twitching. And then other times I'll hook up basically a TENS unit to it and send a current at a specific frequency that's causing, we can kind of take it different levels. We can do a low frequency, which will cause this like constant twitch tap on a pattern, or we can take it to a high frequency, which sends almost like I tell them like TV static, like this constant buzz. And you'll feel after it sits there for a little while, I tell them, take deep inhales, really breathe into that area. You almost start feeling it twitching more, and you can see it twitching. It's visibly changing the tissue integrity that's going on. So we might put it in, it's like this constant tension point, and we let it run there for about a minute, and all of a sudden the glute muscles are like really firing and twitching. Nothing has changed to the frequency. It's that your muscles responding to the stimulus that's in it. And that's just another way. Sometimes I'll just use the needle to do it, or I can use the TENS unit and kind of let it run depending on, say they're in pain or discomfort. The TENS unit works really well to add to the needle. We kind of clip it on, and it sends this system. It allows the nervous system to calm down and register what's going on there.
How does dry needling with the electric current differ from normal EMS or electromuscular stimulation?
Yeah, so
external.
When I put a pad on the surface, it has to go through like transdermal layers, like all the skin layers, to then try to hit a muscle, right, to stimulate it. So when people have injuries, they'll put like a TENS unit on and get stimulus to help the pain receptors. And that's usually what a TENS unit does from the outside, is pain receptor. Now, something like the new fit, it runs on a different current. It hits it a little differently. But even that, I've played with attaching.
Because the new fit is supposed to penetrate deeper than a regular.
And it does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. But it's interesting because I've played with the new fit with needles as well. So clamping the new fit to it, what you might get the surface level, which is just saying like how much intensity is needed from a machine, right, to go through those layers. Even soft tissue going to the outside is never going to give you quite the same effect deep into that muscle. But when you put the new fit on like a pad, the level that machine can get turned up to, sometimes it's like 50 before you're like, oh, that's getting uncomfortable. When I've hooked it up with the needles, I've never gotten it over 10.
Yeah, I was just going to say
ever.
10.
No one has ever tolerated over 10. So it's the exact same body part, exact
Just
same
going
thing.
so much
it's
deeper.
just so much deeper because it's so much more intense with the needle in that specific muscle belly. Now you can never train with a needle in you, right? And stimulus,
Right.
like that's not safe. That's too much damage to the muscle. But when you're sitting there, laying there, and it's in a relaxed state, we're allowing the muscle to respond, and we get a really substantial response from it. I've had one of the girls, she was coming in, and she's a rare breed in the sense of she's willing to do a lot with the needles. Sometimes it's freaky because needles are a little scary sometimes, but she was very dead set on, she had a bad rib flare. So every time she'd pose, she had this massive rib flare that she could not get to control. So we did some needling through her abs, and she was able to get that rib flare to kind of come down, which was huge because in bikini, every little thing, when you're at that top level, every little thing matters.
Yeah.
So when we were able to get that under control, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel like I have ab control there. I can breathe that in. I can open up my chest differently. And it's just not the same always doing soft tissue work or scraping work in through there. I'm not going to get the same response as getting that muscle to fire and change its response. I need the nervous system to recognize what's changing in that muscle.
So then within dry needling, you have the needle itself, needle only. You have the needle with the TENS unit, and then now you're starting to use needle with the newbie?
I don't per se use it on the newbie. I use
Okay.
it with my TENS unit. I've just tried it. It was more
Okay.
to see how different the level of intensity is that you
That's
can use with
interesting.
it.
Yeah.
For more people, the newbie gives it a pretty intense. That's an intense
Might be a
feeling.
little too intense.
Yeah, if you can't go over 10, it's a pretty strong feeling. And I've tried it on some bodybuilder dudes, and they're like, "That's a strong feeling, right? You can really feel that." And I want them to feel like they can relax while
Yeah.
the needle. It's already
If you're so tense in the therapy that
Correct.
you can't,
Kind of defeats the
yeah.
purpose.
we're
Yeah, yeah.
creating more problems,
Yeah.
right? The system is in lockdown. It's like fight or flight, scared. We want it to be able to relax. But there are times, some of the girls, it's like, I just can't get this portion of my glute to let go. It just will not. And it's learned a compensatory pattern, and the nervous system has really found that is its new normal. And you'll put a needle in, and instantly it starts changing, it starts firing and
So
twitching.
interesting.
And all of a sudden you see it sit different. And I had this one girl, she was going to Olympia for figure. It was the craziest thing. She literally was posing, and you're like, she's missing half a glute.
I've seen this before. I know what you're talking about.
Like I have a week to get her to find a glute, and you can't train to have a glute show up in a week, right? Like that's not going to happen.
Well, and it's not a mass, the tissue mass. It's that it's
Correct.
locked up.
It's literally that it just doesn't know how to release to plump up and find itself. We needled that thing within within one session. She was like, I don't know what just happened. And no, that was not comfortable, but I would do that a million times over. She's like, I don't know. That was magic. She's in the simple sense of, I came in here and I didn't have a glute, and I left and I have a glute.
Right? No, seriously, I've seen this happen in the dry needling.
It really is.
I was so nervous the first time that we did it, but I've seen the results in exactly what you're saying, where you go from somebody. I've seen somebody the tie-in just disappear, and then after dry needling, it just everything kind of falls back into place and relax. It just was just so locked up in there so that's really cool, and it's not as uncomfortable as I mean, it's some more than others, but I know sometimes people are nervous to try it. Like the results are really incredible.
And I tell people it's one of those, we have a conversation. If this is really uncomfortable, you don't like it,
you don't have to.
We'll switch modalities. Like this is exactly what, not all modalities are critical. If you can't calm down into that situation, it's too much, then we find something else. But I do recommend people try it at least once, like give it a shot, because even though sometimes people think it's like really uncomfortable, it's more, I tell people, almost a little unsettling, because you don't know when that twitch is going to happen. So it's the anticipation that can be a little freaky. But once you get used to it, and I've said it myself too, I will take that discomfort. If some spot kind of hurts, right, it makes you a little sore, because it makes you sore. For the results you get after it, you're like, I'll do it.
So worth it.
It's so worth it. I would do it every day if I could, right? Like it's one of those, the result speaks for itself. You really do get a lot of relief. I've had people come in, their back is totally locked up. They're stuck, hunched forward. The guy was like, had someone drop him off. He like hobbled up in to the facility. We needled his back, and it's just getting, again, the nervous system, because when things go into lockdown, muscles tighten, they compress on your nerves, they push your nerves, everything's just like safety, and our system's really good at protecting itself. So we ran needles through his QLs, along the rectors, into the glutes, kind of getting the entire system to realize it's safe and it can relax. He stood up, walked out.
Wow.
No issues. One of those things, and he even was like, that was not the most comfortable thing, but he's like, I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't function. And to get relief like that from a modality is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's I don't know if it's a misconception or something, but I do think that I have a vision in my mind about what massage might be versus what body work really is.
Yeah.
And they're different things. I mean, this is not, this is body work is really focused on, and I'm sure there's some school definition of it, but the body work that we're talking about, there's going to be a little bit of discomfort. There's going to be a little bit of pain. It's not treating pain with pain, but it is treating a lot of pain with a little bit of pain to get that outcome on the other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would, like when I said to tell people when they walk in, I'm like, this is not your comfortable massage. And you're not going to be able to fall asleep. Like, I need to ask you questions. We are going to work together. We're working together to make this happen.
The lights aren't off and the whole thing.
Like, those are great too. Like, you can go do that, but you have to know that this system we are working to achieve something. We're going to get up. We're going to test things. We're going to work to figure out how this works with your pose. I have one of the girls, because we would get up and down so often, she was like, I'm wearing my bikini, because I would always make her pose. She was like, so I want it to fit. So she wears her posing suit. We treat. She stands up. We check it. She gets back on. So we can really get into all of it's not one of those like you undress. You're in clothes. We're like working. We're stretching. We're moving. We're getting into things, right? And I think I'll tell people you'll be a little sore for like that day. I usually have people take a rest day when I'm doing needling, or they've already trained before they came and saw me. And then the next day, depending how soreness is, you might just not train that body part. So say we did stuff in through their back, you might make it a leg day or something like that. And for others, like myself, if I have something treated, I typically try to train it the next day. Like if I had my glutes needled, I'm doing glutes the next day. I know my soreness isn't too bad. I just have learned my body, but my mind muscle connection to those
so much
areas
better.
I've heard, yeah.
is unparalleled. You can literally think glute med and you're like firing it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's awesome, because it just got woken up. It just got so much stimulus to it. You've started to build that mind muscle connection while I was sitting there running. So when you train, you have so much connection there. It's one of the best pumps ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And so the time that you would not use the dry needling would be if somebody can't relax enough, or
Yeah.
if they're like a little bit too nervous and maybe they need to like you do some other mode, which you did
Yeah.
when I first came to see you.
Yeah.
We didn't do it right away. And
Yep.
that way, you know, I got comfortable with you and everything else. And then, you know, cause I mean, I do think that's part of it. It's just
Absolutely.
like, you know, getting that comfort. So, I mean, I think it's like, I like letting people know that too, because if they're
Yes,
not ready to
yes.
jump right in, that's okay. But it is something that is really worth giving it a shot if you're comfortable with
Yeah,
the person you're working
absolutely.
with.
And I think that is a huge thing. We had that conversation of like, sometimes you got to read the person too. If they're coming in, they've never done body work, they're super nervous, probably not day one. I'm going to like
Jump
use
right
them
in.
as a voodoo doll, right? I
Right.
know that's like a joke that I use to put a bunch of needles in. You might put, and I've said this too, we kind of sometimes do like a pistoning technique where you put the needle and you kind of move it around in there, and that can make you a little bit more sore. So someone who's like, I don't really like needles, I'm not going to do pistoning on them either. I'm going to put the needle in and I might hook it up and leave it. And that's the form of needling they're going to get. It makes you way less sore. It still gives you a good result, maybe not completely like the other. It's an introduction into needling. And if they tolerate that, the next time, every single time, they've been like willing to do more because they had a good introduction of it. It wasn't as scary as they thought. They knew they were like sore that day. The soreness went away. And it's not where you're sore for a week, 2 weeks. You have this awful bruising that never, it's one of those like,
Right.
it's
more,
enough
it's almost like a
sore.
workout sore. I feel like
Yes.
it's like, so those
You
of us
pump-
that
you
work
work them
out,
out.
we're used to kind of feeling that workout
Correct.
soreness. And so I don't feel like it's that much different than
I agree.
that feeling.
And that's what it makes you feel like you got a good workout in that area.
Yes.
Like it's just the muscles are sore because they've been worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go on to, because I'm
Yeah.
really glad we spent time on dry needling, because I think a lot of people, this is still, and it is, like
newer
you said,
one.
like you said, I know some states don't currently allow it. So I even have people that travel to do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, luckily we're able to do it here, but
Yeah, and I think one thing that we should tell people is that, okay, yeah, we endorse, we like the needling,
Yeah.
okay? There are other modalities.
100%.
And so if that's not available where you are, then
okay.
you find, yeah, that's okay. And
Yeah.
there are so many other modalities. So let's talk
Yeah.
about modality number 2.
interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today.
Yeah. And even that within my sessions, I utilize
Other
many
things.
different things. So
Yes.
once I'm done needling or something, then we're going to go in and try to release the area a little bit more. So I might use some scraping or some cupping or some deep tissue work and stretching. And those are just listing them. So now let's kind of go into each of them. When I look at tissue and it seems really bound down, right, we can check it on a couple different levels. I'll usually be assessing as I'm going mobility, right? So I'll take their foot, say they're laying on their stomach, right? And I'm working in glutes. We'll kind of take the foot, check hip internal, external rotation, see how it responded with just the needles. Okay, now we're still lacking in this one area. Let's mobilize, let's stretch it even more, because say we just needled it and got it to release. Now we're gonna use some scraping and cupping and some deep tissue. So if I'm scraping, I'll kind of work over some of that glute tissue that I had just gone through, kind of run it up the system into the low back, your QL, your erectors, and I'm not getting it to the point where you look like you've just been beaten. It's maybe a light pink, potentially, depending on people's skin type or texture. Some people just become,
So
we
for
call it
people
like
not
petechiae.
familiar with scraping, how would you describe? I mean, I know how I would describe it, but
It is not this
it's not a
kind of
roll.
a
It's not a
texture.
rolling pin.
Yeah, it's not,
Or but
you really don't want to be beaten or very uncomfortable. You don't want drastic red marks left there. You want a light redness. Imagine if I have tissue and there's little speed bumps under it, right? Little bumps under tissue. I'm trying to level out the bumps. That's a good way. And I
So you're
don't
using the
need,
tool
I
that's
am using the tool at a gentle amount to kind of rake through. The analogy that we were used in school is cooked pasta doesn't move well. Like if you try to move one noodle, the whole mass wants to move. And that's what happens in our tissue, in our muscles. Every time we use it, we get a little breakdown, we get scar tissue, and the fibers get crisscrossed. So when we scrape, you'll feel, we call it like gravel, like little bumpiness under it. That's like imagine a cooked pasta bundle. We want the muscle fibers to move like dry pasta sliding out of a box, moving super smooth and easy. So we use the scraping almost to unrack or break and clean up the tissue so it moves in one straight line so our muscle can bend and straighten smooth and not have like catches or restrictions that are pulling it in one spot versus the other. So if you're sitting there and you're like, if I push my leg, you want some mushiness, right? We want like Kobe beef. We
yeah.
want soft, nice tissue texture. If you poke and it feels like when your quad is squeezed, rock, we gotta find a way to not only loosen up the muscle, but the fascia that's covering it. So that's kind of what we're doing with scraping. We're getting that fascia to kind of relax, give the muscle some space. And then cupping is another form of that. It just creates a negative pressure. So if I put a cup on, it creates a negative pressure that helps kind of suck the skin up into the cup, which allows blood flow to go a little deeper to that muscle. So
and
I
some
can,
separation between the muscle and the fascia,
correct.
right?
Yeah, you're almost like giving traction there, which lets blood flow, and you can create space. So that tight muscle, we can create space as opposed to putting the scraping tool down and kind of compressing and reorienting fibers. We're creating traction and space to give blood flow deeper to kind of give some expansion.
That's a great explanation.
The two work very well. So sometimes, for like a lat spread, I might need to utilize both of them. So a girl can't get their lats to pop in that back pose. So we'll run through and we'll scrape through erectors, get that nice and clean, and then we'll kind of run it along the mid back and rhomboids and over into the side of the shoulder so they start having the fascia's loosened. Now we want to get the muscle belly to move and find its new space. So I'll put the cup on, I'll kind of get the tissue to release, and then I'll sometimes move them with the cup on. So now we're creating this wide range of motion because we're creating a negative pressure that's going, and then I'm forcing movement while it's there too. And then you take all that off and you've gotten quite a bit more space in a lat spread just because we gave the body room to move.
And I know some people use the heat with
Yeah.
the cups. Like, what is your perspective on that? Because I know that's kind of more of an old school sort
It's
of.
definitely more of I don't think people use it as much nowadays. Just the risk of injury is
Right, 'cause
too
I've seen
high.
some of that.
I've seen people come in with burn marks in them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not something that would not be my first go-to on having someone do, just because the risk is so much higher. Not only could the pressure build so much that the glass breaks, if you're not careful, it definitely, if left on and someone's not watching it, it can create pretty significant burns on people. The pressure cups that you use, either a pump or the suction cups. I like suction cups because they work really good with movement, and I do a lot of movement with my cups. I don't just leave them there for most people. And even that, I like a little bit of redness. Sometimes it'll look a little octopusy attack, like when you get an
Like a
octopus
little bruise,
attack.
yeah.
But I don't want just solid purple marks that are there for weeks. I had a patient come in one time and they had gone and seen someone and they had their cup marks there for 2 months.
Wow.
And that's your body. It hasn't even been able to heal that trauma.
That's a lot of trauma.
It broke so many blood vessels. The system, it's like sitting stale blood now. right? Like the
Yeah.
system is not able to move that around. It's not becoming a beneficial tool anymore. You want it just to bring, we call it like petechiae, like a little redness to the system. Blood flow is moving through there. We're getting stuff loosened up. I don't want cut marks and redness to last more than maybe a day, 2 days, if that. Most people, you could ask most of the girls, it's gone by that night.
Yeah.
Like they go home and they don't see anything for the most part.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I have, like you say, I have seen more extreme, because whenever we've done it together, it's been very effective, and I don't have like those really, really intense marks. And then of
Yeah.
course I've seen people that have gotten burned and they're actually scarred
Yes.
from so I think it is important, like, because cupping is pretty common and easy,
Yeah.
it's not hard to find somebody who does that modality, just making sure, maybe asking questions,
Yeah.
how they like to utilize it, that kind of thing.
And if someone is, say you went into a place and they're using a fire cup, just make sure the person like stays in the room and watches what's going on. So you don't want to just have them put cups on you and leave, right? So you can say, hey, this is getting hot. I'm feeling this. Is this normal? You want someone there just observing.
Yes.
So if
And
that
speak
was the
up.
case, speak up. Don't just, if you're uncomfortable in that, there's another modality or a way of
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
I'll add another caveat to that just because of the importance, and with us being competitors. I always also, one thing I make sure I ask people is, okay, well, when's your show date? If they're coming in and they're like, I compete next weekend, okay,
No cupping.
our modalities completely change. We can't have any potential risk of bruising. You can't have marks. You can't have increased inflammation. So things that we do are like specialized for that type of treatment too. It might be more stretching, deep tissue, a little ART, things that I can control the variables. Where, the worst is when you see someone on stage and they are just bruised up the side or whatnot from a body work session, and you're like, that made you more inflamed, that left a mark that's going to go against you in that situation. So I think that's another conversation to have, is make sure your body worker or provider kind of knows where you're at in your season. That's a huge thing too, just so they can be smart with what they use.
Yeah, and I've had great results with some active release. So talk about ART and what that is, what it means, like how you would use it, because I do think it's also got a great place.
Absolutely. It works extremely well in hip mobility, which is super important for all of the girls in posing. Getting toes turn out, toes turn, all of those things for training to get that glute, to get that full look. If your hips are so tight and your glutes are so shortened, we can't give it that full bubble look, which is what we want. So we might find a spot in the glute. So using that same example, I'd said a girl's like laying on their stomach, right? We're checking their hip internal and external rotation. If I can get their foot to come outside of the table, so say this is neutral. Sorry, this is hard to explain with just my arm. But if I bring it out this way and they stop about here, I'm needing about that much more range of motion. So I might find the port of the
So
glute.
for people that may be listening to this and not being able to see
Then they
it,
could come to YouTube.
they could come to you.
Yeah,
too.
I know.
So if you think about your arm moving at a 90-degree angle, you're moving about halfway through that range
Yeah,
and
so-
not the full 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I
Okay.
know. I should have used
No,
a
no,
better.
no, no.
okay.
You're
No, you're
good,
good.
Chris.
I'll
you're
use,
good.
for example, the shoulder, because I can give a better image of this. So if they're laying on the table and I take their arm and I want to get a true 180 degrees, that's kind of our track. Most people should have 90 degrees down and 90 degrees back. If I can only get, so if this is, neutral and I can only get 20, 30 degrees down, we're lacking a huge range of motion. Something is locked up in the back of the shoulder that is not allowing that stretch, or we have pinching in the shoulder because it's not sitting in the right spot. So we find, okay, well, where's that pressure coming from? Do you feel it in the back of the shoulder? Do you feel it in front? Oh, I feel it in the back. So then we start working through that muscle tissue. So I might pin my thumb into a spot and then work into that shoulder internal rotation, treating those muscles back there. And then I do a lot of contract relax with the ART motion. So it might be like, okay, push down, push back against me. So they're pushing back, my hands here. I'm still pinning that same muscle. And then all of a sudden they can go here. And they're like, what just happened? But you're getting that muscle working against resistance where you're pushing on it, and then it finds a new range. And we kind of do it until the full 90-degree arc is achieved. And then that drastically affects their training, because if they only have 20 degrees of internal rotation and they're trying to go do a T-bar row or any type of exercise, and you don't even have that mobility, you're getting grinding in your joint, and that's going to cause problems. So ART is a great way to gain mobility without a needle or anything like that. You can picture it, even some of us use those, like you were saying, with your trigger point ball. When you put that on the back of your shoulder and you're laying on the ground, you can kind of do a little ART to yourself.
I do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
the ball becomes, say, my thumb digging into it, right? And then you're working through range. And sometimes you get to that spot and you were saying, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so uncomfortable. You sit there for a second, you take a couple deep inhales, you let your body find that as a relaxing point, and then you try to stretch it a little bit more, and you're still pinning that same muscle. And you're getting a similar effect of me doing treatment on that person.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the contract release.
It's huge, huge.
And I was thinking about this as we talk about hypertrophy, or which would fall in the category of optimization, and that if you're only able to move a muscle through 80% of its lengthening and then contractile phase, you're missing 20% of the hypertrophy potential on that muscle, the work that muscle could be and should be doing to be fully optimized. Yeah. And so this is, again, the reason as we talk about muscle growth occurs at the stretching or the elongation of it. But if you're not able to get there and then move through that entire range all the way through the contractile phase, whatever the max is for that, you're really depriving your muscles of their full potential, and thus you're depriving your body of its full potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, in order to get a muscle to contract, it has to elongate, right?
Correct.
If I want something to shorten and I already live in half a shortened state, my contraction then becomes this.
Tiny.
So then my muscle building can only be there too. So my hips get bound down, but my glutes don't actually develop that full look. And I just use glutes because we all can relate to what it looks like.
And we all focus a lot on glutes.
We focus so much on glute. And if you're training and it's always staying in this kind of partial range of activation and you're missing that entire lengthening phase, just imagine the girth and development that could happen. You're going to be putting in time for years to get what you could get in. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying like a shorter amount of time, but technically the activation range, right?
No, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Like I literally have seen it. I've had people come to me before and I'm just like, how are you doing? They'll tell me their workout program and I'm like not seeing development in the glutes, but everywhere else. I'm like, how is this possible? You're doing this. But they're like, I can't feel like I'm not tuned in. I can't. And it's exactly what you're saying is like, they're not able to get the range of motion that mind muscle connect. So like all the modalities you've talked about really help to tune in. And then when they go in, I mean, it's literally like a light bulb went off. They're like, oh my God, I can feel my glutes. I can tell exactly what I'm doing. I'm working the right area. And it is a game changer.
Yeah. The analogy I would use here is that if you have a balloon representing your muscle and you have a pump hooked up to that balloon, and that pump goes all the way up to 10, but if you're only letting it go up to 5 and you press it down, you're going to fill the balloon up to that 5, but you're not going to fill it up to the 10. Correct. It's only when you get that pump all the way up to the 10, then you can fill the muscle completely, or the balloon in that metaphor or analogy. But it's really about optimizing your muscle to the full extent by releasing it so that it can move through. I mean, it's so funny. We talk about range of motion and exercise. And yeah, full range of motion and exercise is great. But again, that's the movement of the machine. But if the body is not, if the muscle that should be moving the machine is not moving through that full length of progression, then you're just not getting the full work out of that muscle.
Yeah. And going along with that analogy, because I think that's a fabulous thing for people to connect with this, we have to break down our muscles a little bit in order to build them.
Right.
Like we have to create a little muscle breakdown,
tears.
damage.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's little micro tears that happen to help build more. If we are never getting to the point, like that balloon analogy, if we're never actually stretching the balloon any further, we're not getting any growth. We're kind of staying in that same phase. It has to get to a point of breakdown in order to grow, to get bigger, to get used to that next load. Because you can't progress your weight. You can't do all those things if you're not strong within that range of motion, right? We have to let that muscle be able to completely relax, completely contract to build muscle, and then you can actually load it to create the next level of tension and loading because it only builds under stress.
That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully people are really getting a good idea of the purpose and then how these things work, because I know we've brought it up a couple of times with massage, which I'm all for massage.
Yeah.
I got nothing against massage.
Yeah,
Actually,
I love 'em.
after our last treatment, I got a massage
Yeah.
between,
Yeah.
but to me, that's like great for relaxation.
Correct.
Like it has its own purposes, but it's different than the kind of body work we're talking about that's very specifically to optimize form, function, and
Yeah.
and minimize and prevent injury.
Absolutely. And even that, I've had some masseuses here, right? And you work with them, and even they will distinguish their type of service is different when they go, because one of them I had seen at one of the massage chains, and he was like, I was like, well, I'm an athlete. I want very specific things. I want you to kind of like get in there. He's like, oh, you want a sports specific massage? And he goes, they're different. That's not like you would have to participate with me. So even that, like, just say you only had access to a masseuse, right? Or a massage therapist, being very specific with them of like, hey, I have these specific things I want to work as the entire unit and system to achieve these goals is a good way to even make that further connection of I'm not just
we can
relaxing.
add an R to rehab, recovery, relaxation, and optimization.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that as we put massages in that category of, hey, massages for relaxation are fantastic, and allowing your body to relax is a good inflammatory response.
Yeah.
It's part of the recovery process, but it's not as active as some of the other recovery processes that you might employ
Correct.
through cupping, needling, scraping,
Active
ART,
release.
yeah. And Kristen, we're running a little bit short on time. So, are there any other modalities that we want to talk about? Because there is one thing that I do want to talk about before we end this episode, which is cold plunging.
Yes.
And to make sure we cover that. But are there any other modalities that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about, like maybe ultrasound, pulsed
Red light,
lasers,
anything
red
like
light,
that?
anything like that?
I utilize red light in my office every single time. Every patient that comes in, I have red light going in the background for them. I think that's a huge healing component. It's blood flow, circulation, mitochondrial turnover. If you have access to red light, that is an awesome thing that you can have going in the background. You could have it on yourself while you're working at your computer, kind of a thing. That's just another layer of recovery, which is awesome tool. And with ultrasound, things like that, typically that needs to be guided by a licensed practitioner that will do some of those. But I think with most modalities and things like that, doing a little background information, just finding out kind of who, if anyone's gone to that practitioner before.
So we'll talk about that on our
Okay,
Fusion Hack, okay? About how
Okay.
to select your
Perfect.
body worker. And I don't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off.
no.
But this is the way we
Yeah.
tease that. So
No,
we
I
want
love it.
people to watch.
I love it.
What can I
love
say?
it.
Greg, master marketer. Not at all, but like, right? Okay.
No, I think that's good. But I think once you've done some body work with people too, like I'm doing scraping, I'm doing cupping, you kind of get to learn what things feel like. So you can mimic a lot of the same things, say with a foam roller. And okay, this is kind of how it felt when she was working down my leg on that soft tissue thing. Once you kind of get in tune with how people are doing it and the relief it gets, you can learn more on how to kind of keep up with it on your own.
Well, I also
too.
think learning how your body should feel.
Yes.
I think you made this point earlier, is that you like, it's like walking around in a constant state of what you said, low grade fever. Like if a low grade fever is normal for you, or low grade inflammation is normal for you, you're not going to recognize when your body's not inflamed.
Yes.
But then once your body is not inflamed because you've had the right work to it, that's what you want to replicate over and over and over again. And so that's one of the, again, advantages of finding a good body worker to really work you through that, to know how this is how I should feel.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully they give you homework.
Yeah, I would say, and sometimes you have to ask for it too.
Yep.
Sometimes they might not do it, but if you ask, most people are willing. They're just used to people not always doing it, right? So they're like, okay, well, they're not going to do it anyway. I'm not going to give them. If you ask, they're going to put even more into you because you are serious about your care. And then going back to your thing about cold plunge, I'm huge on cold plunge. I love cold plunging. I think it's great for nervous system, kind of like getting the nervous system to calm down. There is a little caveat I tell the athletes when they come see me. typically tell them wait at least 2 or 3 hours after getting body work before they go do cold plunge. We want all that blood flow. We want everything that we just did kind of going to those muscles, helping healing. I don't want to shut that process down. Another thing I tell people, try not to do it right after your workouts. That kind of disrupts the hypertrophy growth phase that we have. It's okay to do before your workout, especially if you're like a high anxious, high stress person. It kind of resets your nervous system, gets you down, calm down, so you can get more out of your workout. It works pretty well too if people have reported like tons of benefit with that. Definitely not right after your workout. And you don't need to do it every single day. One of those things like 2-3 times a week, if you had access to it, would be awesome. If you had access to it 1 time a week, that's great too. It's really just reducing general inflammation in the body, getting your nervous system primed and prepped for kind of hard stuff. It's uncomfortable. It's not something where I can't wait to go sit in a bucket of ice, right? That's not always.
And there's other methods, and
Yeah.
one of the studies I read said 11 minutes a week is optimal. So when you think about 11 minutes a week, it's definitely not something that you need to do every day.
Correct.
And I'm not talking about 11 minutes 3 times a week. I'm talking about 11 minutes total
Yes.
for the week. And you can do a cold shower. I mean, I do the cold shower
Yes.
because it's just easier for me right now. But in Phoenix, I can't do cold showers in certain summer months because
Yes.
the water
water's not
the
cold
water
enough.
doesn't get cold. So
Yeah.
that's when I utilize the cold
Yeah.
plunge. But yeah, I think it's a matter. I think cold plunging has become one of these viral things that people are overusing and not understanding it's a definite game changer and a role player, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
And again, everything, as Aristotle used to say, nothing to excess, everything in moderation.
100%.
If you're doing it too much, then, or at the improper times, you may be defeating your other purpose.
I know we're running over, so just one little thing on that. One of the girls had told me that, she was doing cold plunge, and she's like, honestly, I feel really sick after. Like, it takes me the entire day to recover.
Wow.
I kind of feel nauseous, and I was like, cold
do
plunge
it.
is not for you then. Like, your nervous system, that's too much. You're doing worse for yourself. So if you're someone like, I really feel sick, I told her, start with a cold shower. Just take the water down as cool as you can tolerate. Do it for 30 seconds. If you can tolerate 30 seconds, okay, the next time you do it, you try for a minute, right?
Yeah.
You got to get your nervous system used to it. It can't be something that you are dreading, makes you sick, makes you nauseous, you have bad response to. It's counterintuitive.
And you're defeating the
Yeah.
purpose at that point.
Yeah.
I did have one more question. What about prior to body work? Would you say don't do it before, or you could do
You could do it before. Yeah, I've had people do it, and because I would rather have that where they're almost like calmed down and ready for the session, as opposed to them wanting to go do it right after. Say someone came and saw me at 6 p.m., they're probably not going to go cold plunge at 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
So if you wanted to do that before, kind of get your nervous system ready, set, that's perfectly fine. You can go do that.
What about hot tub before, after? What's your thought on timing on that?
Yeah, that's more of like a if it feels good kind of a thing. There's not, you have to do it for something to feel better. I do typically, if someone's really sore, because I try to tell people, like, I want inflammation there right after treatment. I don't want you to mask it. So I don't want people taking ibuprofen. I don't want people doing all these things. That's kind of stunting the healing that we have sending there. Kind of goes with the new, gotten rid of the rest, ice, elevate. That kind of acronym isn't around anymore. We don't want to take NSAIDs. We don't want to ice it. We want the body to heal itself first. So the heat after a deep tissue or body work or whatever kind of helps keep the blood flow going, helps loosen the muscles without stunting that process. So I tell people, if you want to take a hot shower, probably help you loosen up the muscles even more. You'll feel good with it. And then to help tolerate cold plunge, sometimes I'll help people flip-flop back and forth between the two, depending on goals that they have with that.
So before we go, I have to just tell my dad joke here, because my dad told me this joke. And as you're talking about the person in the cold plunge that got sick afterwards, oldest joke in the book is a guy goes to a doctor and he says, "Doctor, it hurts every time I raise my arm." And the doctor says, "Well, don't do that." And I mean, it's kind of like, it's one of those things that I think people just, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best solutions. So
It's kind of what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, sometimes we have a tendency of overcomplicating it because we want to do what everyone's saying we got to do, but not everything works for everyone.
Right.
That's it. Good-
and I
good
think
to
it's good to give that permission to go, hey, this is something
Yeah.
and it's okay to give it a shot, and to go, okay, this didn't work out so well for me. I'm going to give this other thing a shot. And hopefully, whoever the people listening find is someone who is listening to them, because I feel like that's really important too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, Kristen, what's your checkout word? You were eager to start.
I know. I'm hopeful that you guys listen to the information that we talked about and are like, take this and really run with it, because it will just take your training to the next level. You'll get better results with competitions, and it'll like influence the longevity of your career and life with it, which is kind of our ultimate goal.
That should be if bodybuilding is about becoming the next best version of the best version of you, then it should be about longevity.
Yeah.
And this is really the key to longevity in the sport, in your lifestyle. I mean, bodybuilding is a lifestyle choice, and so make the complete choice, not just, hey, I pick
Yeah.
things up, I put things down, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. You are a gift. And remind people how to contact you.
Yeah. Just reach out to me on Instagram. It's Kristen Bennett, Kristen Bennett, BENNETT _IFBB Pro.
That is awesome. And are you ready, my love?
I'm ready.
Okay, so remember to like, comment, subscribe, leave your reviews, and the 3 Bs.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other, and be safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBodyFusion.